TBR, Skeleton Key here, and this is my December TBR, and it's gonna be a little bit different than all of the other ones I've done so far, because this is, for one thing, it's ginormous. I'm listing every single book that I would theoretically need to finish all of my reading challenges that I have set myself for the year. And yeah, I don't know what I was thinking, but it's crazy, and I know it's not gonna happen, so it's gonna take me a while to get recording done for this, because I've been having a bunch of issues lately, and health-wise, and so everything hurts, and I managed the stairs to come down here, so we'll see how long I last. But yeah, if this seems kind of choppy, that's why. I'm just gonna start by going down the list and telling you a little bit about each of the books on the list. I may have to break this into multiple parts even, because this is a really, really long list. I don't want it to be just like, here's a book. Yeah. And we'll see how I do reading my notes. It's kind of a crazy flow chart kind of thing. And I didn't write down authors, so we'll see how good I am at remembering authors. And the first one, I do not remember the author's name. It's a very Irish sounding name, Patrick Keenan something, I think, something like that. But anyway, it's called Say Nothing, and it has a subtitle. I have it on Kindle through the library, and so far it's really interesting. It's true crime during the Troubles, so that's first on my list. I hope to get that finished tomorrow, because book club is tomorrow. That is for the Book Snobs book club, which this will be the first one I've been to in a while, because they've been meeting in person, and I've just not been up for that, but we're moving online, so yay, Zoom. I think Zoom. I better check. It's either Zoom or Hangouts, or whatever Hangouts is now. Google Meet. I don't know. I should see what the link is for that before tomorrow. And then next on the list is for another book club that meets Monday night. That's the Old Town Library book club, and that is Virgil Wander. I have that on audiobook on Hoopla. It's the library, and that is, it's not my normal kind of read, but I'm liking it. I really like the writing style. It's about this guy in Minnesota, and he has had basically a near-death experience, and he's got some memory issues. He was very severely concussed, and so he's recovering from that. And then this guy shows up in town looking for his son, who disappeared years previously and is presumed dead. And this guy just found out that he even had a son, and so it's about the community. It's about this renewed search, I guess. I'm not far enough into it to know what the plot really is. I just know that I'm enjoying watching things unfold, and I'm enjoying the writing style, and of course the Minnesota accents are fun. Next we go, finally, physical books. Alright, and this, and I probably won't actually get this finished in time. This is, see what it is? It is the Diaries of Hannah Colwick, Victorian Maidservant, and this was for Lucy's challenge in Victober, and the challenge was to read a Victorian diary or set of letters, collection of letters, And so I picked this one because it sounded really interesting, and it is really interesting. It's just, it is kind of slow going, and I've had so many other things going. But it is, yeah, and it's got pictures and everything. It's really a neat book, but I had to get it on Prospector, which is sort of like interlibrary loan, and I could only renew it once, and yeah, they're not charging me a fine, but if I keep it out, I think an extra 3 weeks or more, they're going to assume I lost it, and they're going to turn me over to a collection agency, and don't ask me how I know that. Yeah, I learned that the hard way. So yeah, I'm probably going to have to return this to the library before I get it finished. And I do have actually a requirement to read on my personal challenge this year. I need to read a book that is written as a journal. And so this works perfectly, but I have a feeling I'm going to have to substitute something else for that prompt on that challenge. Try to check this out again next year. We'll see. And I'll get to that in a little bit as to why it's important to finish that prompt this month. So there is Hannah Colwick. We go to another physical book, Gideon the Ninth. Ooh. I am really super anxious to read this. Can't wait to read this. In fact, I may give up on Hannah Colwick now. Start on this tonight or tomorrow. Let's get this sprayed edges. I really don't know quite what to expect, but so many of my friends have absolutely loved this, and I'm hoping I love it just as much as they do. So there we go, Gideon. And then we go back to the ebook arena with Gods of Jade and Shadow, and that is by Marino Garcia. What is her first name? Sylvia Marino Garcia. That is for the High Tea Book Club, and that is actually my pick for the group. I've read one other thing by that author. I kind of hated it, but I really wanted to give this author another chance, and this book sounded really interesting to me, so I thought, well, and I also, Mexican Gothic sounds amazing to me, so I want to read that. But I already had Gods of Jade and Shadow, so it's like, okay, I better read Gods of Jade and Shadow. And if I don't like Gods of Jade and Shadow, then maybe this author just isn't for me. Back to another book club book, Beak of the Finch by Jonathan Weiner. I'm gonna guess Weiner. But, and this is for the LHR Society, which is coming off of hiatus, now that we have somebody with a Zoom account, in the group. In this dramatic story of groundbreaking scientific research, Jonathan Weiner follows these scientists as they watch Darwin's finches and come up with a new understanding of life itself. It's about, the Galapagos Islands and the birds on the Galapagos Islands and natural selection. And so I've heard it's a little dry. I did start reading it back in like March before we canceled that book club. And now we're coming back to it. And it is a little on the dry side, but it's also very interesting, so it's an interesting subject. And then back to the world of ebooks, and I've got Puzzling Inc., and that is for another book club, one of my Sisters in Crime book clubs, and that is by Becky Clark, and I've already talked a little bit about how this one's about crossword puzzles, sort of. I mean, that's sort of the overall theme of the mystery series, is that the sleuth writes or creates crossword puzzles. There's a lot more to it and her and everything, of course. I have started it. I'm a ways into it, and I'm really liking it. And then back to audiobooks. On Hoopla, there was they had a copy. They had the audiobook for Don't Overthink It by Anne Bogle, the modern Mrs. Darcy blogger. And so I started in on it. I stopped it because I wanted to write down. It has like little, I don't know, workbook type questions at the end of each chapter or section. And so I wanted to stop and I did for the first section. I actually posted my answers in the my Goodreads status, and I decided I don't really want to do that for all of them. So for the second one, I've got them written down and I have not answered them yet. So that's on me. But I've only got a few days left on that borrow, so I need to finish that up pretty quickly. And then back to ebooks. I've got another Hoopla book, The Underground Railroad. And I'm trying to remember the author's name. It is not Colson Whitehead. Originally, it was supposed to be the Colson Whitehead book. The prompt on that challenge, one of the Habitica challenges, was to read 2 books with the same title. And I read this nonfiction kids book on the Underground Railroad. And then I thought, okay, and then I'll just read Colson Whitehead's The Underground Railroad. And I borrowed it from the library. I wasn't really getting into it. I had to go back to the library. And I thought, oh, I'll just borrow it again. But then I saw other books, kids' nonfiction books with the same title, The Underground Railroad. I'm like, let's just read another one of those. So that's what I'm doing. But I'll let you know how that one turns out. It's a little bit longer. The other one was like 24 pages or something, like, really geared for elementary school kids. This one is a little bit longer. I think it's more like 50 pages. So, and a lot more text. And then Jade City. Try to get back to Jade City. I gotta do it. I really want to read it. I was really enjoying it before I set it aside, but I do have that one on Kindle. It counts for at least one of the Sirens challenges. And I've also got, I think, 2 different challenges that require a book that starts with the title starts with the letter J. So this is like a really key book that I've been putting off, and I don't know why. And then another Sirens book. Check this one out again. Slice of Cherry by Dia Reeves. This one, so far it's delightful, which really surprised the heck out of me. So looking forward to getting this one finished and back to the library. Okay, back for a little bit more. All right, so next up is going to be Interview with the Vampire by Anne Rice. And this, I have just started on it a little. I'm on page like 7, so I can't really tell you what I think of it yet. Seems okay, I guess. I'm not really much into vampire lit in general. I really enjoyed the Buffyverse. I haven't read anything in the Buffyverse except, I did read, season 8, the comic book. I'm not big into comic books either. I haven't read any of the, I guess there are Buffy novels. I have not read any of them. I read the first Twilight book, and I didn't absolutely hate it. I was like, when I was 15, I probably would have really liked this. But as an adult, I didn't really dig it. I read a Chelsea Quinn Yarbrough book. Was it Hotel Transylvania? It was fine, I guess. I guess it's supposed to be really heavy on the erotica, but I can't remember when it was written, but by modern standards, it was pretty tame. I read an Anita Blake Vampire Hunter book. It was alright. I read the first, was it Dead Until Dark? The first Sookie Stackhouse book. It was alright. So I have a feeling that with this, I'm gonna be like, it was alright. But we'll see. I don't know. It's a fantasy classic, and that's why I'm reading it. My personal challenge, I have to read something by Anne Rice, and this just made the most sense. And it's not terribly long. It's a little over 300 pages, so that's not too bad. Oh, and the Swords and Stars challenge. I have to read a fantasy classic, and that's the only thing I have left on that challenge this year. Fantasy classic, and I figure this counts for that. Okay, so this is the book that has been on it's the longest standing book on my Goodreads TBR. I joined Goodreads in 2010, I think. Yeah, 2010. And this was a book club book, and I never got it finished. And it's been, I've started, I've made it a little bit further each time. Technically, I'm only on like page 108, but this is one that I have skipped around in a lot. So, but it is interesting, but a lot of it is about dog behavior, and I'm not a dog person really, so. But it's still interesting. Temple Grandin she's a bit of a local celebrity. She's a professor at Colorado State University. In the autistic community, she is a little controversial, I guess. I don't agree with her on a lot of things. But she is an autistic woman, and she is entitled to, her experience as an autistic woman is her experience as an autistic woman. It is very different from my experience as an autistic woman. In part because I'm considerably younger than she is. Our experiences are just different. She has very set ideas on how some things should be in the autistic community, and a lot of us don't agree with her. Some of us do. But I've met her. I like her. And I appreciate what she has to say. So I do want to finish this. And I have several other books by her, and I do plan to read them. I value her input to the conversation, even when I don't agree with her. Okay, back to ebook land. Kushiel's Dart. We used to have a hard copy of this, and I think we had the entire series. My husband really liked them. They just do not sound like anything I want to read, but it's for a book club. I presume we'll be trying to go back to that one. Now that LHR Society is back and is up and running again. It's really long. It's like 1,000 pages long. And I've got, I think, one challenge that requires a 600 page plus book and one that requires a 700 plus page book. And I want to read that one anyway. And it starts with a K. I need a book with a title that starts with the letter K. So Kushiel's Dart it is. Gonna try it. It just does not sound like my cup of tea. But I went ahead and got the free download from Tor. They offered it once. I'm like, okay, fine. So I have it on Kindle. Next up is, I've had this one on the list for a while now, The Art of the Con by Anthony M. Amore? And this is the most notorious fakes, frauds, and forgeries in the art world. It was a prize. I think it was like a summer reading program party at Old Firehouse. Something at Old Firehouse. And they had prize baskets, and this was in one of the prize baskets that I... But I do think this looks really interesting. I don't really know much about the art world. This is for the prompt of a non-violent, and watch it be like all sorts of violence in here, but it's for a non-violent true crime book. And this is another Sirens book, The Bone Witch. I have never heard this name pronounced. Rin Chupeco? I'm totally guessing on that. Please correct me if you know I'm wrong. I don't really know anything about this, but I love the cover. I mean, look at that. That's a beautiful cover. Bones. I like bones, skeletons. Yeah. This is the Bone Witch series. So I am looking forward to that. And I think the author is a Southeast Asian. I think I've got a challenge prompt to read a book by a Southeast Asian author. Okay, back to ebook land. Space opera. I gather it's pretty much a love it or hate it kind of book. I think it sounds delightful. It's farcical and like literal space opera. It's like an operatic competition in space. Sounds like fun. Then we get to Right as Rain, and this is the oldest arc that I own. What is this? This is from... And this is so it's not nearly as thick as it looks. It's a double book. So you've got Hell to Pay, then, Right as Rain. And I remember looking and seeing, okay, it says coming in mass market from Warner Books, February 2002. The hardcover of Hell to Pay is coming from Little Brown, February 2002. So Right as Rain is the older of these two books. I don't really know anything about it. I'm wanting to say I got this at VoucherCon in 2001. And I probably met the author there. I don't recall. I don't remember. What does it say about it in here? Glistens with the grit of DC's mean streets. Well, I like DC. DC is one of my favorite cities. The crime novels of George P. Pelecanos, and I hope I'm pronouncing that right, are unrivaled for their authenticity, edginess, and humanity. With Washington, D.C. as his backdrop, Pelecanos introduces two new characters, both former cops, one who walked away from the job with his pride and a life, and another who didn't. So, we'll see. I had the worst time getting anybody pinned down in my family on their favorite book. And because that's the prompt. Read a family member's favorite book. And I was thinking, okay, well, I'll read Tale of Two Cities. That's my mom's favorite book. And I mentioned it to her, and she's like, no, I remember reading it, but that wasn't my favorite. And I'm just like, okay, well, at least now I don't feel like a bad daughter for not having finished Tale of Two Cities. My husband was really hard to pin down, and he'd just be like, oh, it just changes all the time. I'm like, well, okay, but do you have a favorite? And he wouldn't tell me. So I asked on Facebook, and, I even extended it to, like, all my, like, my SAI sisters, and my sisters in crime siblings, and I did get a few responses, and most of them were ones that I had either already read and didn't really want to reread, or I didn't have access to readily, or I think one of them was The Way of Kings, or was it The Name of the Wind? Anyway, big ol' honking book. I'm like, no, I need something a little shorter. So I was gonna go with Wind in the Willows, which I inherited a copy from a friend's mother a while back, and I'm like, that's close enough, right? even though the person recommending it is actually not related to me by in pretty much any way, I don't think. But yeah, he's a close friend. He's, we're really good friends. So I'm like, okay, well, yeah, you're fam. But anyway, finally my husband came through. The Family Trade, Charlie Strauss. He's a big Strauss fan, and I haven't read a whole lot from Strauss, but what I've read I liked. So, and this sounds really interesting. It's book 1 of the Merchant Princes series. So, sounds intriguing. For the personal challenge, I need to finish a series I started at least a year ago. So many series I've started, but they're either really long and I'm, maybe approaching the middle. I'm not near the end of any series except maybe the Alphabet series from Sue Grafton. But even then, I would have to read U, V, W, X, and Y. Because I'm only up to U. So, but then I remembered, okay, Connie Willis writes the Oxford Time Travel series, and I started reading it long ago. The first one I read was To Say Nothing of the Dog, and which is not the first. I've been reading them out of order, apparently. But I do kind of recommend starting the series with To Say Nothing of the Dog. It's especially if you're an Agatha Christie fan, because Connie Willis is also an Agatha Christie fan, and it shows. And it is definitely way more lighthearted than Doomsday Book. So if you enjoy that one and then go back and read Doomsday Book, brace yourself, because it's not lighthearted at all. Now, Connie Willis has stated that she does have plans to write another book in the series. So technically it's not finished. But I haven't seen it officially announced anywhere. Maybe it was one of the online cons this year. Because she'd mentioned it, that she was thinking about it, probably about a year or two ago. But this year, she did confirm, at least unofficially, that she's going to continue the series. I remembered that I have this, Firewatch, which is a prequel. Or maybe it's the first book. I don't know. It's listed on Goodreads as 0.5 in the series. So it's either a prequel or a novella or novelette that, because it's really short. It's like 92 pages long. And that, I think, includes like an afterword or something. But so it's a novella or a novelette. I never can remember the distinction exactly in science fiction. But if I finish this month, hopefully that will be before she announces another book in the series. And then I can say, yes, I'm done with the series. Right? Another prompt that got rolled over onto my personal challenge this year was to read a lit RPG. This is Space Opera Insertion, which is part of the Rift Worlds Online series by Brian D. Howard, which I believe is a writing team. Is it a 2-person team? Or maybe it's just 1 person. It is signed, so I've met either Brian D. Howard or one of the people who makes up Brian D. Howard. I can't really read the signature. It's definitely a Brian, but the last name I can't tell. It could be one of those things where it's 2 people, one named Brian and one named Howard. And lit RPG is a different kind of thing. It's like you're in a game, and so it's got stuff like this with stat blocks and things like that. I think I've read something like that before. I'm wanting to say, I remember reading a Descent novel once. Don't ask me what. Well, I know why, but and I think it was like that, and it was like reading a video game transcript, which I don't know. I tend to prefer watching that kind of video game. I tend to prefer watching other people play it rather than playing it myself, even though I like playing RPGs, like tabletop RPGs. But so I might get into this. I don't know. We'll give it a shot. And I think I'm gonna wrap up part 1 of my TBR. I still have a ways to go, but I'm gonna wrap up my part 1 here, and just because I know this is gonna take a long time to get through, and I can't do a whole lot at one time, and I can't edit a whole lot at one time, so wrapping this section up, and hopefully I'll be able to get this posted and maybe some other stuff edited and posted, and I hope I can be more consistent soon. But in the meantime, please like and subscribe, and I will see you around.